Hey everyone, how's it going? Bowser the Healer here, and today we're here to talk about the new Evoker spec, Augmentation. This was announced this week and it's live for testing on 10.1.5. I haven't found any tier set, but we do have the whole kit to play with and it feels more or less complete. I have a lot of very positive things to say, but I'm completely aware that we're all very worried about if this becomes hyper meta, slippery slope. Is it worthless or is it needed? I can quell some of those concerns after testing it. I have a lot of really good things to say and sort of where I foresee the balance going. However, this is going to be, I think, mostly up to stat values in the weights of the talent tree stuff, more so than the kit itself. I think the kit itself is chillin'. So for context, before I get into explaining the moves and the talents, and then I'll address everyone's concerns, note that I'm 423 right now as of recording this video. I don't have all my new pieces of gear, but I've quite a few pieces of gear. I'm running a little high on mastery, but not a ton of mastery, which only leaves me at 11%. Now, I'm going to get into mastery first, then we're going to go over the main ability that the whole class centralizes around. The mastery is that after casting an empowered spell, I grant shifting stands to 2 allies, preferring damage dealers, increasing their versatility by 11% for 11 seconds. The duration of shifting sands, Breath of Eons, and your other helpful auras are increased by 10%. What this means is my helpfulness stuff is all increased by 10%, and I'm giving out 11% verse to 2 allies. So that means that using my empowered spells is going to be constantly buffing people in the defense and offense land, which is really nice. On top of that, our main ability, in fact, the first ability in your talent tree, Ebon Might. Increase your 4 nearest allies' primary stat by 14% of your own, and cause your eruption to deal 28% more damage for 11 seconds. It may only affect 4 allies at once, and prefers to imbue damage dealers. That's a bit more for raid. So if you're not in Mythic Plus, it's going to buff for damage dealers that you're nearby. Also, get prepared, raid players. I'm pretty sure you have to stand close to them. So that'll be fun for positioning. And then Eruption, Breath of Eons, and your empowered spells extend the duration of these effects. So it's all about keeping it going. Below the mana bar is the Ebon Might bar. I'll go over what all these moves do in a second, so don't worry. But we pop Ebon Might, use one of our new abilities, use our old Fire Breath, and then cast Eruption, and notice that it's extending the length of the time we have. I'm going to start casting other spells in hopes to get Essence Burst so that I can keep doing Eruptions. And this all extends the duration, giving main stat to people. So everyone nearby is just getting main stat because I'm grooving out here. I like to think of this class as grooving. And then after you're done, you can pop another Ebon Might and refresh it. Now, if I use our breath move, I can actually get this to extend for almost ever. And I think with a little bit more haste, I might actually be able to get it to extend forever. But the fact that you can almost get it to extend forever, you know, separated by a GCD or 2, is pretty incredible. And yeah, that's just main stat. And how much main stat? Mine fluctuates from 1,300 to about 1,500. And that's due to a talent that increases my intellect in this spec. That's a main hand. Like that's like a one-hander. I was actually looking. I have a one-hander here. It's 1,450 intellect. Like that's, are you kidding me? It's like giving someone an item slot. So giving your whole party an item slot is wild to me, but it's really strong. I'm gonna go through the moves and relevant talents so you guys can all check out this build. And then I'll get into the concerns. So we're gonna talk about this move in a second. So our new empowered spell is Upheaval. The further you charge it, the bigger it gets. Doesn't increase the damage at all, thanks, caster. It'll also knock the enemies up if they're able to be knocked up. There's also an ability that makes Landslide knock them back down and stun them, which is pretty cool. But these are training dummies that don't get knocked. This is an empowered spell though, so it counts for extending Ebon Might. Fire Breath is Fire Breath, you already know how this move works. Eruption's our new spender. It takes the place of Disintegrate. Costs 2 essence the way I'm currently talented. And it's just a nice little AoE move. Again, it does more damage during Ebon Might. So it's pretty important to let your essence come back and recharge so that you can go blasting as much as possible during Ebon Might. There's a real chance that with the way I'm talented, I end up moving a point into 1 more essence so that I can actually have a slightly longer eruption phase that's starting to feel more and more important. Prescience is a move, and I swear to God, I looked it up on Google. I think that's how you say it. Tell me if I'm saying it right. Prescience gives 3% crit to a nearby ally preferring damage dealers if you don't target someone directly. And with the way it's talented, it has a 35% chance to grant an essence burst, and it provides an echo to the person who has it, giving them a chance at dealing 15% of their damage or healing again. So if you throw a move for, 10,000, it'll do 15% of that 10,000 every once in a while and just kind of slap on extra damage. It's a very easy button to hit, and it's super cool, and it won't try to retarget someone who already has the buff. So if you're actually playing, you can just blind fire pressions and it'll go exactly where it needs to. And it doesn't prioritize you, I've noticed. It tends to prioritize other targets. So I'm pretty sure in a 5-player stack, you'd be able to hit prescience, get a DPS, hit prescience, hit a DPS, and then both your DPS have 3% more crit, and you're just chilling, hopefully getting essence burst from it. Blistering Scales gives someone an ally 15 explosive dragon skills and increases their armor by 30% of your own. Melee attacks against the user cause the scales to explode, dealing currently 3,200 damage at about 9,800 intellect. Now, it is AoE, which is great, and I'm running a talent that does more than a few things. This talent increases its damage by 10%. Each time it lands, it stacks up to 10 times, which is pretty incredible. And then this talent makes it a shield based on missing health. I can give them more dragon scales, but honestly, having an extra external defensive to me is just way too important. So I ended up talenting it this way. And I did test it with a tank. The coolest part about this move is it counts as the tank's damage, or whoever you put it on, which means if I throw it on a tank and they want to get on a mount, and yes, it does work on a mount, and run around the Alcathar Classic, they will in fact pick up the mobs and start getting threat for them. This is a super cool move. It is good damage. We were noticing that it was actually doing 7 or 8% of my friend's damage during the Alcathar Classic, where you pull all the lashers, except I messed it up and didn't put it on him at first. So the fact that we're at 8 to 9% with me not doing it correctly is awesome. That's just 9% more damage for your tank. Heck yeah. And then in single target during the Veximus fight, it applied 3% extra damage to the tank, which isn't a bad thing. No tank's going to complain about 3% more single target, but it's less impressive in single target. The next move we're going to talk about is Spatial Paradox. It invokes a paradox for you and a friendly healer, allowing casting while moving and increasing the range of most spells by 40 yards. And it lasts 11 seconds. Yeah, so that's not, oh, your range goes to 40 yards. No, that is have another 40 yards on your move. So you can be actually in Narnia, throwing heals out and doing damage. It still doesn't let you cast empowered moves while moving, but this is super cool. And it only targets healers. This is a button for you to press when you want to move while casting, and also give your healer movement while casting. There are situations in dungeons where healers cannot be pressing buttons because, simply put, they need to sit still and cast, and this is just going to enable them to have Spirit Walker's Grace. And if you're a Resto Shaman, now you have 2 Spirit Walker's Graces. That's awesome. That's super cool. Just try not to overlap them. You also get 2 new attunements that go alongside Blessing of Bronze, and you do have to activate them for your party. However, it's important to note it doesn't replace Blessing of Bronze, so it's actually pretty strong. The Black Attunement's going to give 4 nearby allies 5% increased maximum health, and the Bronze Attunement's going to give the 4 nearest allies 10% increased movement speed. You can change these around, so you can just kind of toggle them on and off depending on the situation, but you can also just kind of put it on and forget about it if you want to. What's really broken is this talent. This might get nerfed. I'm not sure if this is busted. I'm not the person who would know, but it feels a little strong. Popping your defensive, which we have 2 charges of, by the way, amplifies Black Attunement. It also turns on Black Attunement, and it increases the maximum health of all the players with it by 20% for 13 seconds. That is a rallying cry because I hit my defensive. Holy heck. And then Hover activates the Bronze Attunement, and similarly gives your teammates 40% movement speed for 4.4 seconds. So when you as a player would go, I need to leave this area, I'm gonna die, everyone else is faster. When you're going, oh, this raid wide's going to hurt, I'm going to press a defensive, everyone gets fortified. Now granted, it's only providing health, but a health can reduce what's lethal, can help a healer stabilize. All of you who've played with Rallying Cry know just how good it is. So this is a phenomenal talent. And I didn't even get to one of my favorites. This is up there for top 3 strongest talents in the tree. Symbiotic Bloom. Emerald Blossom increases the target's healing received by 6% for 11 seconds. It is 2 talent points, and then you have to spend 1 more to go down here, but effects that extend Ebb and Might now also extend Symbiotic Bloom. So you can run the talent that hits 5 targets for Emerald Blossom. You run this talent to increase healing, you pop Ebon Might, and you can extend their durations for insanely long times. Furthermore, you have a passive in your kit, and this is just in here. Nourishing Sands. When you kill an enemy that yields experience or honor, the cooldown of your Emerald Blossom is refreshed, and your next Emerald Blossom within 22 seconds restores an additional 20% maximum health to you. So this is Victory Rush for dragons, but it also will still heal nearby players. And not only that, that'll provide the increased healing on everyone. They'll get the Symbiotic Bloom, and that's gonna make everyone heal more. It's wild. It provides so much. And let's talk about the final ability. This one I can't get enough of. Breath of Eons. So you fly to the targeted location, exposing temporal wounds on your enemies for 11 seconds. Temporal wounds accumulates 21% of damage dealt by your allies and you, affected by Ebon Might. Then critically strike for that amount as arcane damage. It also applies Ebon Might for 5 seconds. So 21% of damage during those temporal wounds are not absorbed, but are copied. Then they get doubled with a critical, and then they explode as arcane damage. That's crazy. This move is insane, and this is the part where I can finally reference the class. This is like Tekker from original PSO2, and even to an extent PSO2 NGS, where there was a move called Xanverse, and excuse me, I played the Japanese version of the game, so I'm not sure if it's called Xanverse in English, but Xanverse was a little field that anyone inside of it was doing 20% extra damage, but it wasn't their damage. Xanverse would replicate that damage every couple seconds as 20% wind damage. So just be, oh, you did 1 million, I took 200,000 of that, and now it's wind damage, right? So this is Tekker as far as I'm concerned, but even with myself, I'll just show you a little rotation. We'll pop Ebon Might, we'll fly over, and we will cast Upheaval, an instant cast Living Flame, and then I will spam Eruption. When that yellow debuff goes away, it'll explode. Boom. Now, that might not have seemed like a ton of damage, but I'm one person. My entire team can do it, and I don't see a restriction on this, so I think in Raid, you can ramp Ebon Might with a different cooldown and get a lot of people in on this damage and do something crazy. And just so we're clear, there is a move here I missed. Time Skip. You search forward in time, causing your spells to cool down 1000% faster for 2 seconds. And then the goofiest talent in the game, Time Skip channels for an additional second, which is 33% increased efficiency, but it's funny for a talent to say it only helps for 1 more second. Now, I'm running the version of the talent that just reduces all my cooldowns by 15%, and I no longer have the 3-minute to extend. I think this is better in Mythic Plus, but to consider that Raiders could ramp up an Ebon Might on as many people as possible, and then have them all blast into a giant breath is going to be super cool, and I cannot wait to see what players are able to do with this. I think it's sick. I think this whole spec is actually really well designed. There's a lot of cool things here that all feel very good, and you still get the treats of DPS, like having a better kick, or you can talent into prio target. There's even 2 spells I didn't talk about. I'm not taking them, but you can give someone less threat reduction for 33 minutes, which is nice. And you can also get some Wernstones, and you can teleport to each other every once in a while, which is also really nice. This is really good in open world if you're exploring with a new friend and you want to help them figure out what's going on. I'm curious if there's going to be some crazy M+ strats with this, because it doesn't seem to say anything about being in combat, just 100 yards. So I can imagine there might be some funny snap business going on. Okay, so let's address the concerns, because this is, I think, the biggest point to talk about. And you all know I try to be positive and very optimistic, and so I'm going to throw you the best I got. And this is a slippery slope. This could turn out horribly if tuned incorrectly. But thankfully, I don't think it's the kit that's the problem. There's a couple of balancing factors you can go off of here. One major balancing weight is our damage output. I only did 97.6k, around 100 something during that little burst I just did. Yeah, you typically sit anywhere between 60 to 80 in 5 target, and even lower in 3 target. Your single targets, well, it's not great. I didn't do the best job in Veximus. You can see here, my damage numbers were not pretty. They weren't fantastic. Now, part of that's because I'm healing, part of that's because I'm new to the class. My Ebon Might and Eruption uses were Garbo, so my single target was not the best it could have been, because if I use Ebon Might correctly, I should be able to get off more than a few eruptions back to back very quickly, really getting as much out of that damage bonus as possible. But yeah, the damage is a little weak. You're better than every healer. You're going to do more damage than healers 9 times out of 10. You're probably going to do more damage than tanks as long as the pull's big enough, right? But you're not going to do more than a DPS ever, and that would be broken. Our balance being our damage output is one place that they can go to make sure this class stays relevant or fair and not broken. The other place is that Ebon Might scales with main stat. So if it's just not enough main stat, you can tune this upwards and you will just hand out more value. And so that's another easy way for them to adjust the balancing weights. Furthermore, some of this utility can become stronger. Like, what if Prescience becomes an OGCD and it can affect up to 3 people because they extend the duration on it? Well, then all of a sudden, maybe that's the tipping factor to make it a little bit stronger, or increase the damage on blistering scales. There's a lot of individual places, like Breath of Eons, making this maybe last even longer, or affect more targets, who knows? I think there's enough balancing weight here, right? Positions in the class that, or in the spec, that they can change that are separate from each other that will help the class remain good. My ideal world is that they're either on par with having a standard DPS in your party, or slightly worse than having another DPS in your party in exchange for insane utility. That will make pushing keys really nice with them, good for a buffer with new players that might need a little bit of help. They're not going to be able to maintain the full weight of a DPS if your team isn't playing well and if you're not playing well. And I think if you can find that mark, it'll be golden. If you make it too strong and it's like better than having a DPS, then Augmentation is going to feel mandatory. And I can imagine Devastation players hopping into a key ready to blast some bombs and then being told like, oh, can you swap to Augmentation? Like, that's going to suck. So you don't want it to be that strong. And it's going to be easier to tune, I think, in Raid. Actually, I think it's going to be fine because it's all about that ramp in Ebon Might. It's going to become mandatory in Raid, but what, are you gonna grab like 3 or 4? No, you're probably gonna grab 1 or 2. Oh, well then it's like a lot of other classes where it's nice to have someone in there to buff maybe some spellcasters or buff people who don't benefit from things like Wind Fury, right? This turns into another side of that buff you can do. I don't mind a class becoming mandatory for Raid because Raid compositions can vary, and not only that, as you get gear, you can clear with just about anything. Who did it? Was it Gingy or Now? Someone did a video series where they were bringing like 2 tanks and then all of 1 spec of DPS into Raid, trying to clear the entire Vault of the Incarnates. Yeah, you can make just about anything work with gear score. So it's not like an issue if it becomes mandatory in Raid. You'll just have like 1 or 2, maybe 3 in a, if you got too many people who are passionate about it. But honestly, it's probably fine when you consider that. That, and as far as I'm concerned, the biggest problem I have with WoW players is there's a bit of doom and gloom when a patch comes out or something is changing. The amount of people that I've seen who like stop playing a class because they got a mild nerf is wild to me. You just put so much time into a character that can clear stuff to ditch them because they lost a little bit of damage. Some patches have been brutal. I'm fully aware of Blizzard's patch history. It's not always been the greatest, but as a newer player, I try to just look up to things, and this class looks really fun. I like the idea of it, I like how it works, and I'm certainly going to be giving it more than my fair shot. And you all know that I'm a healer at heart, but this is support, and I also main Zenyatta in Overwatch, if that gives you an idea of why I'm excited about this class. But I want to hear your opinions. What do you guys think about this class? Are you also worried about the tuning? Let me know your thoughts. And I know some of us were disappointed we didn't get our tank spec, I know, but other than not getting a tank spec, I'd love to hear your inputs on this class or the spec and what you think about it. Get subscribed if you want more, y'all. Lots of videos coming out soon, and I will see you all in the next one. Take care, friends.